The creator was the first artist. For Dr. Ravi Nayar, this idea reflects a deep personal philosophy. An ENT surgeon with an MS from PGI Chandigarh, DLO from London, FRCS from Glasgow, and a DCCS from Paris. Dr. Ravi Nayar is also an academician, art enthusiast, and a passionate advocate for biomedical innovations. As program director at CCAMP's Interinstitutional Biomedical Innovation Program, he has co-founded startups and advised corporates on how to leverage academia in a sustainable way. He enjoys working with motivated teams and has presented his work to professional industries across the world. Dr. Ravi Nayar met Dr. Sharan Srinivasan later in life. Though they come from different fields, ENT and neurosurgery, their friendship grew through meaningful conversations and a shared alignment of values and beliefs. That connection led to another thought-provoking discussion, which is what you're about to watch.
ജ്ഞാനാനന്ദമയം ദേവം നിർമ്മലസ്ഫടികാകൃതിം ആധാരം സർവവിദ്യാനാം ഹയഗ്രീവം ഉപാസ്മഹേ ആധാരം സർവവിദ്യാനാം ഹയഗ്രീവ ഉപാസ്മഹേ ഹയഗ്രീവ ഉപാസ്മഹേ.
Rebooting the Brain, powered by PRS Neurosciences. Asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityormam amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everybody. My name is Dr. Sharan Srinivasan and this is one of my favorite slokas, which defines what I do every day, what I think, what I want to do for the future. As the sloka says, from ignorance to light, from darkness, ignorance to knowledge, darkness to light, and from death to immortality. This can be modified, adapted to any aspect of your life, personal life, professional life, or anything that you do. So I think it's a great sloka which is, time immemorial. So like I said, I'm a functional neurosurgeon. And today we have a very interesting person, a great friend of mine. We share a lot of things together, including the craziness to do a lot of things outside the profession. So without much ado, on today's podcast, let me welcome my good friend, Dr. Ravi Nayar. Ravi, welcome to the show. Great to see you here.
Thanks
I
a
was
lot.
itching to get you on the show.
As I said earlier, you're one of the last of the Mohicans who still feels I have something to offer. So lovely, glad to come.
So can you tell the audience a little bit about your background that you would start? Obviously, we will go through the process.
Yeah, so I think I would describe myself as a doctor, an academician, a head and neck surgeon, an ENT surgeon, passionate about research, passionate about innovations, and trying to prove something. And I think I'd like to continue trying to prove something till the end of my days.
Perfect. Actually, as your motto says, just wait, I'm still sorting it out. I think it sounds very mundane, very silly for some people who gets it at the first glance. Obviously, it's a very profound statement. Let me be honest about it. Because I think as scientists, the only thing we will do is to keep doing things like this until we die. Because there's nothing that will get sorted out. Because if something gets sorted out, something new will come up for sure. Because you saw that what you sorted out is not good enough. So I still remember the first time I met you was not as a neurosurgeon looking for a head and neck surgeon or an ENT surgeon, not in the hospital context at all. I did not even, we did not even cross professionally. I remember that day when, I mean, that context was Dr. Ramesh from St. John's called me one day in 2014, and he said we're having some Stanford Biodesign program for the first time ever, where we're getting doctors on one side, we're getting engineers on the other side. We're trying to put both of them in one room, come up with problem statements, blah blah blah, and we're trying to come up with something. It's very innovative and things like that. And then I kept listening. I was thinking, what is he going to say, and all of those things. And then he said, "We, I heard that you have designed some. I had just made some prototype of some gadgets for myself for my rehab because I wanted to be low cost." And he has heard about it because I had not really, published it anywhere and things like that. And then I said, if that is the case, you come in, we want evaluators from outside to come and evaluate these things. So can you come in? I said, I felt like somebody's looking at me from a technology perspective. I said, I gladly said yes. So I showed up on that day, and somebody was giving the briefing of this whole thing, what this course was all about. They gave me a folder which had a lot of things of what the next 3 4 weeks is going to happen. And then when I saw that whole thing and listened to, I can't remember who presented that day, I said, I am not an expert to judge this program. Yes, I did something out of this. So I put my hand up and told Ramesh, I think I want to withdraw from the evaluator. I want to be a participant and learn. And he said, Sir, it's actually only for St. John's people. You're an outsider and this and that. I said, let me know what it takes. And then, as an exception, he allowed me. That is very graceful of him. So I jumped onto the other side and then I got into the mix. And then I think the second day of that, there was a program in Axel, and then that's when you showed up. Then, I mean, I saw your name as Dr. Ravi Nayar is going to talk on a topic. And I mean, I thought it's a part of the program. And when you came in and spoke what you spoke, it was inspiring. I was really waiting for you to finish and get time to chat up and connect with you. And you remember there's a big table, we were having lunch. And
Could you tell me what I spoke?
so, and that's when I realized that this is one guy who's thinking like me, talking like me. I was lot misunderstood by a lot of people when I say a lot of things which is not, it's on the off the beaten track as what it says. So there we are, and then we have a journey of a lifetime we've had together, which we will cover as we go across. But what do you have to say to this? What I said so far?
So I think I tend to vibe with a lot of people who think out of the box. The reason I think is because I came into medicine, unlike you, a bit sideways.
What do you mean?
In a
Sideways?
sense, it's not like I was focused on getting into medicine.
Got it, like me.
Like you said at the age of, you were
It's standard, yeah. I want
decided
to
and all that stuff. So I was confused. I still am, though I gave advice to a lot of confused people. But I think that's because I know where they're coming from.
Correct. Yeah, that also helps, of
I
course.
still don't know where
Yes.
I'm going, much less where they're going. But I know what doesn't work. But anyway, so I got into medicine with a little bit of confusion in my mind as to whether that is the profession for me, whether I was up to the thing. But I drifted into it because I had good marks, etc. I had turned down engineering, which I had got on the basis of my marks. I had got a straight walk-in into some national level institutes. So
what made you do that?
Okay, so I don't really know, to be very honest, but I think it's partly that in India you join medicine when you are immature. I think in
That's
the
what you
West,
say?
they have a minimum graduation level.
That's right. I
when you
always
enter.
wondered why.
We tend to, from school when we are absolutely raw, we are asked to choose a profession. Now, mind you, the profession is a C. As you go on down this road, you realize that the profession is so vast.
That's right.
Right?
Any profession.
So the risk of, I mean, even if you know, even if now I'm asked to make a choice, I would not know. That's another story. But you're not sure of yourself, leave alone the profession. So I think the essential feature in a decision is not really the external things, but the internal level of maturity. So if you are mature, you can make mature choices, because the choice is not only external. The choice is very much how you can cope with it.
Correct. Very
So if you
true. Very
decide to
well
do a
said.
surgery and you're not trained in that kind of surgery, you couldn't do it well.
Correct, correct.
It may be the right
Similarly.
thing, but you may not be the right person to
True,
do it.
true.
So that maturity as to what you're good at
Very interesting. Never
takes
thought
time.
like this.
Yeah. So I think we rush it. In fact, this concept of a gap year has only come in now. And children take gap years. In my time, if I took a gap year, people would think I've lost it.
I know. No, actually, just to butt in here, when I was in Japan doing my fellowship, there was a very interesting thing that came up, and I heard them talking among themselves, and they said, Japanese really pay attention to this fine details and really, fix things on the ground. They said this 12th standard, same, they have also the same decision making, point at 18 years or whatever. And they give 1% grace marks to all the boys to compete with the girls, because they have found out that the girls mature faster than the boys. So that's why the girls are always outshining the boys at that level. So to make it a level playing field, can you imagine? They actually do that across the board. Whether the guy is smart, not smart, doesn't matter. And the moment I heard that, what came to my mind is every time the SSLC marks or the PUC things come in the paper, you see girls outshine boys, girls outshine boys. They get more. You've seen that constantly. I said, whoa, so this is a hormonal issue. This is not as, that's what came to my mind, because if they're doing across the board and you are resonating the same thing, not for the sexes per se, but saying that the immaturity is not the right point, we're doing a disservice to them by actually doing that. Very interesting.
But then on the other hand, I don't think it is easily segmented as male, female,
Correct,
etc. etc. Because see, it works two ways. One, and we know this from biology in general, the species which take time to mature later, therefore vulnerable in a longer period. But when they do mature, they're smarter than the species which are, mature the moment they come out. Because there's that gestation period of sorts, not in utero, ex utero, is what actually makes a difference.
Interesting.
That is, in fact, oddly, I don't know whether this parallel is a valid parallel, but that was what happened when I think it started in the USA, where they started military schools, direct officer cadre entry. Traditionally, you join as a private, you work your way up, and if you survive all the battles, pick up a lot of experience, you become a colonel or a general.
Okay.
Right?
That's right.
So they started this officer training academy. So I think it was West Point or something like that. The equivalent is found in Sandhurst. Every country has it. NDA has it.
Correct.
So what happens is you have one stream which comes up from the bottom and one stream which comes in direct
Lateral.
entry.
Okay.
So that initially was a bit of a shocker socially. Take somebody raw out of college and you expect him to lead a bunch of battle-hardened troops.
Correct.
So that's, in a sense, a reflection of the same thing, because these guys have been gestating and picking up a lot of other things.
Correct. And which no textbook will teach you.
Which no textbook can teach you.
Cannot teach you at all. I think.
I mean, conversely, no textbook can teach you the battle experience.
Exactly.
But there is a place for slow maturity.
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not. I think that's a good thing our global audience need to understand, that somebody who seems to be slower off the blocks, somebody else is not necessarily bad. In the long run, it may not even just level off. It may actually be better, and which is the truth when you look back and see many people who have done, not so good in the academically, because the marks is only just a number. I've always said, how can you evaluate somebody just on a number? It's never made sense to me. But we had to play the game, you max it up and things like that. What is your take on these marks and these exams and all of that? How you've been fighting that? I had quite a lot of my battles myself.
Yeah, so it's something we all go through. Question is,
you're forced to.
Yeah, everybody is. You can't change it.
Yes.
Question is, one, analyzing it, and the second is, can you change it? Right. So I go backwards. I don't think you can change it because you need some form of examinations.
I'm
In
with you
India,
on that.
especially because you have the tyranny of numbers.
Correct.
So you have to figure out
True.
whom to select.
Correct.
It's very random, very unfair,
True.
extremely unfair at times
True,
because
I
a
agree.
person who may just not make it to medicine may be not making it because he takes part in sports,
Correct.
which would make him a better doctor
Correct. True.
rather
True.
than
Other way around.
nerd who is only reading
Correct.
books.
Correct.
Like me.
Correct. Well said.
But on
That's what makes people, the parents, remove them from everything. Focus on study. Don't do anything else. And there's this whole fight happening between the child and the parent at home.
and on an analytical level, my take would be that do we really need examinations? Because the need of an
profound question.
examination is not the student's need. So somebody once compared this to you have a plant in a pot, pulling the plant out to inspect the roots, to examine the growth.
What an analogy.
Yeah. Because the trauma of the examination process has turned off many people from subjects like maths and all that.
Even medicine.
Yeah, because you fail once or twice and you get turned off.
You know how traumatic our exams are. Yeah? I mean, I know many people close to me who had these vivas and these exams in medicine, and some of these examiners are like sadists. I mean, they just go around in the process. It's very depressing. And then enough people who have been scarred, things like that. And you also see these things happening, the suicides happening in the IITs or in the workup towards that. I think eventually, as you say, we have to have the tyranny of numbers, but somewhere we have to make sure that everybody is given something else. I think nowadays maybe the alternate paths are better. But
I would put two things from my perspective. One is I may have been a party to all this.
What do you mean?
Meaning I would have been tyrannical in my times. I'm quite sure I was.
Okay.
So I've been told.
Okay. Really? Oh.
In fact, they
sorry.
made,
I mean, I didn't mean to.
No. They made a movie where some person was acting on my behalf. Jagdish did this. And I remember telling Jagdish, hey, come on, I was not like that. And there were other students of mine who said, sir, I think you were. So it's a bit of an eye-opener how other people see you.
Interesting.
Because often you tend to think of yourself in a particular way, other people tend to think of you in another way. That is number one. Number two is that the only solution I can think of, because unless I'm tasked with changing the entire examination system, in which case I may have a different thinking. But in the current setup, the only solution I can think of is empower the people. See, what happens currently is everything is a top-heavy thing. Everything is written from above. This much 2 marks, this much 3 marks, this much 4 marks, kind of stuff. Unless you empower the person on the ground to take his own decisions.
What do you mean by that? I didn't understand.
See, what happens is, especially on Viva, if you go by, you have this OSCE system and all that, where you have multiple questions and plus one, minus one answer. And everybody thinks it's the next best thing to sandwich because it comes from UK.
Correct.
Which is not true, actually. Because when you're there, you have a better sense of the student.
True.
It need not go by book. So I'm a great, opponent of codification. Like even when we have a group meeting to decide which thing is the best, there are some things which are definable, many things which are undefinable. So it is best left to the group on the ground. Otherwise, why have a group on the ground?
Correct.
You put everything into an AI bot.
Correct. Chat bot now.
And let it go. And if this word is used, you give them a mark, you don't give a mark. And then claim that they're better than this thing. But I think that if you're giving space for thought.
I think, as a side remark to what you said about the AI, there was a person who made a statement that, technology is getting smarter, but humans are getting dumber.
I don't agree.
So I think that is something that we should arrest the thing, because I don't think eventually that's the right way to go. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but I think it makes no sense.
So my personal feeling is because I'm at an intersection where a lot of AI and other stuff is thrown at us, and there is skepticism even on the board of people who are assessing it. They hear the word AI, they're turned off because they know it's being used as a kind of punctuation mark, not really with any deep significance.
Correct.
So My personal take is something else here, that we are ignoring the fact that the steps which are needed for AI and the steps with which is patterned on the steps which the human brain takes. So the steps are the same. But there are many aspects of this thinking which we don't know, so we are unable to tell
Translate.
tell
I
the AI
agree.
machine.
Ask me, I can tell you that. Yeah.
So unless because we are finding out more and more things about how we are doing it,
How
but
we
not
process our brains,
our brain.
process information.
In
Sorry.
fact, leave alone brain, the entire system of life forms is tuned in such a way that it makes it a machine which is far superior to any machine which is known.
True, absolutely. And the way we dynamically change also is just
The way
incredible.
we change, the
We're
way
not hardwired at all.
where we alter. So so that's a different kind of a discovery stream. So we are jumping to codify with inadequate inputs.
Thanks for that. I think, in fact, I had gone to a recent tech conference in Manipal, and then when I went in and started talking, I was speaking about my software that I created and how I'm trying to make sure I define the data very clearly, enter it without spelling mistakes, have the standardized entry points, so that I have a standardized data capture, place before I get into AI and analyze the data. And the organizer of that conference said, "Sir, you're the first speaker who's talking about the input. Everybody is talking about analyzing and giving an output." And I made a very powerful statement there, garbage in, garbage out. And I think you told me when we were preparing for this about the meticulousness the French had towards data collection. Can you tell how you learned? Was that way you learned the importance of the meticulousness of data collection?
Yeah, and I mean, in a sense, there's no quantum point at which you pick up things which you.
Correct.
It comes by accretion.
Correct.
So yeah, I agree that I had a stint in France. This was at the level of a resident in that sense, so which is great because it's hands-on. You don't have to carry any airs. You do the scut work, and you learn a lot while doing scut work. So one of the things I realized is that they were very strong on data. So they had a system of accumulating data. There were negatives about the system, but there were positives of the system. Let's take only the positives. They were very meticulous about data, and we're talking 1980s, 1990s, that kind of thing. So their data bank was fantastic. So including, I'll give you an example, if they have a specimen, they've already defined the specimen, which is the limits of the specimen. The procedures are all codified. So just one step backwards. In India, we pride ourselves on the numbers we have done.
Correct.
Right? In the West, they have figured out that medicine is a service industry. So you do the service as such, but you also put industry standards. And industry standards are all about codification.
Correct.
So
Some place to start.
Yeah. So once you codify, then they realize it's not so important that you should do 100. 100 should be done from your team.
We're following these codes.
Following these codes. We define the codes.
Correct.
So your job as the head is to make the code and to make sure that the people who execute are executing as per the way you want it.
Correct. Got it.
Your need to do anything would be minimal, if at all. Thing I've noted, if you were to go to a bank and the manager of the bank and the teller of the bank would do the same job, you would not like it. For instance, the teller would give you a loan, would issue checks, would calculate your balance, would do this thing, and the manager would do the same. Because you would expect that the manager would have a different task based on his experience, his judgment. Teller would do more of the menial work.
Or the knowledge or the education or whatever it is.
But when we go into a hospital, when you go and meet the head of department or this thing, you make him do the same work which the juniors are doing.
Very interesting.
Yes, he takes a history, he writes a note, he's get your blood test.
We are also on the ground. He's as much as the ground as us.
And if he has an assistant who will do a little bit of scut work, but in effect, the time he has to take is the same. Like he would say, write this, write this, write this. So it's as quick as writing, if anything. Even if you try to codify it, you're basically making him do the same work which everybody else is doing. So we have not figured out how to periodize it. And that's why we're wasting our manpower. So you go to any hospital, the
And
intern,
this is unique to the healthcare, looks like, no? That's
and
why I
that too,
think
the
we are stuck.
patient would feel very upset. So, like, suppose somebody is going to see you, and a junior would see him, he'd feel very
Yeah,
upset.
yeah, yeah.
I never saw Sharan.
Yes.
So we need to address that, because that is actually you're wasting your time, and the intern is doing something which he is not qualified to do.
It's a
Put them
strange
together.
problem.
It's a strange thing.
Very
So
strange.
and that is why our data is bad.
And that's, I think the data guys or the engineering guys are not understanding this.
No, forget about engineering. Doctors don't understand. No, seriously.
I agree.
I tried to make all these changes when I was the head of
Oh, I see.
department.
Yeah?
I failed miserably because of the pushback from the doctors.
Okay. And why was the pushback?
They said, no, I've been doing it. My professor has been doing it. I have been doing it. All of us have been doing it. Patients expect it. Why should I change? Like if
And
somebody...
you couldn't give a better, a good enough answer for them to see that? Is that?
The only answer which I could try to convince them is, in the West, they figured this out already. Like the head of department hops from room to room and sees worked up cases. And that's why they have clinical nurses.
Correct.
See, they've been able to, put these tasks to other people, not doctors, because they're exploiting the fact that they want to maintain the doctors as a limited number.
Correct.
In India, somehow the powers that be have thought of, sending a doctor out to space and solving medical problems in space, which never works.
Correct.
Right? Like they send him to rural areas, and he's there in the rural area looking here and down, watching the birds fly. He doesn't know what to do.
True.
It's like
And he feels he's wasting his time.
It's like sending an electrical engineer into the village and saying, solve all electrical problems.
There's no electricity.
There's no electricity. So that kind of, the irony of that, partly because we have not really taken charge. The medical profession in India is not really in charge of the medical profession.
So you are saying that technology is moving in other places ahead, and because of these challenges that are unique to the medical profession, we are not able to use technology to our benefit, and because of that we are not taken. What are you trying to say before?
Now I'm going to hire things beyond my scope, beyond maybe my abilities to think, but from my perspective, I think it's very clear, because I've thought of this long back and I see it all the time, that basically we don't know how to handle the stuff around us. We don't know how to handle our own volume of people who know a lot. See, you teach a student phenomenal things. Nowadays, even school students are taught phenomenal things.
Correct.
What do you do with them?
Correct. Like calculus. I don't know why I learned calculus or trigonometry and
you
sine
won't
theta,
know
cos
how
theta.
to use them.
Correct.
And why do you not know how to use them? Because you're not thinking straight. You're still thinking by, age-old methodologies, and you're expecting to deal. So this is, like I said in some other thing, this is actually future shock. When Alvin Toffler wrote about future shock, he's trying to say that you're using age-old Byzantine techniques to deal with current day problems.
Which won't work.
Which never works. And that is because of the way you have structured your society. Now, I know I'm sounding like an old man criticizing things, but
No, it's, see, as much as things change, things remain the same, because fundamental things cannot change. The sun won't rise in the west or come in the north or something like that. It's the way it is.
But if you have to cope with change, like things may not change, but we all say change is inevitable.
Correct.
The problem is you need to know how to factor that in.
Correct. Inherently.
Yeah. So whatever you say, like they say, the difference between pediatrics and adult medicine is, in pediatrics you're dealing with a child who's growing. Adult, you're dealing with a static human being.
Correct.
So, but they factored that in.
Correct.
And therefore they're able to cope.
Correct.
Now, you have not factored in the fact that people are getting smarter and smarter. Like, I'll give you an instance. Chess. We have so many chess clubs, and Indians doing well in chess.
True. Yes. We have to congratulate him for winning the world championship.
But apart from getting atavistic sort of vicarious satisfaction, that somebody Indian has won, which is to my mind wrong. The guy has got it, and he happened to be an Indian. That's the way I would rather look at it. But more important, we're not figured out now what to do with this set of people, how to exploit them, how to use it for the betterment of society. So we're just allowing it to happen as a statistic,
and as anecdotally, rather than making it like a mass roll process.
No, there are lessons. Say, like there were lessons from the IPL, which is only gradually being applied in Kabaddi and other things.
Correct.
Why only in Kabaddi? Why only this? Why don't you make it an organized thing to get into every sport? there are lessons to tell you that chess, and there are many papers which come out now, many things, that chess is known to actually provide a diversion for brains,
True.
right? Who would otherwise go into all nefarious activities. So a lot of villages have adopted chess and really made a difference in the
In fact,
place.
chess originated from India historically.
But I mean, since India was not India,
Correct,
was
correct.
Bharat, and we
Bharat,
are not
yes,
gone
yeah.
anywhere there. So I don't think we should claim credit for that.
Okay.
I think I would say discredit that we have not taken the right lessons from it. Historically may be true, but unless you're driven the right lessons
Very
from
true,
it,
very true.
using it to shore up your damaged ego is not the
It's
way.
not going to. It's
is
not
not-
good
not
for
the
the
way.
future, or it won't benefit the future. I remember you also mentioned during our chat about when you were in medical school and you were attending this class on external ear. You remember that thing? Can you tell us about that story and how that inner ear stuff came in?
So we have left a lot of unopened
Yeah,
doors.
we'll go back. Yeah.
The
Because you're talking
The
about
fact
the
is
type
the-
of teaching. I'm just
yeah,
coming back to that
no.
type
So
of
it's not
teaching.
really the teaching. The teaching is an offshoot of the examination system. So because they have an examination system based on what you're taught,
Correct.
right? And they've kind of become
And now, because of what the examiner is asked, you're being taught.
so it's a kind of dance or death.
Correct.
This guy won't move unless that guy moves, and he
Correct,
won't move,
correct,
that kind
correct.
of thing. So it is quite a mundane example. They taught externally a middle ear, but the most fascinating aspect of the ear, which is the inner ear, was never taught because it was never asked.
Which I found was, I mean, there was no logic, but they had a logic, because it doesn't been asked in the
so
exam.
it's just functionality.
Correct.
So when you talk about, the thing is, if I bring it closer to where you are, even you have to be functional. There's no
Correct.
point being esoteric. The brain is a scope for being esoteric.
Correct.
But what do? You drive it down to functionalities.
Correct. Correct.
You want the guy
Outcomes.
to- You want the guy to stand. You want him to be able to
Correct.
defecate on you. So
Yes,
you bring it
yes.
down to basics.
Yes.
So everybody has got smart doing that, but we don't realize that there is a scope for esoteric.
And that's also needed to make things better because we don't want everybody to be there. Everybody doesn't have a bowler or batsman, but somebody has to be watching and at least say what's not working, how to make it better. I
So
don't know whether
in a social sense. So let me put it like this. See, an ant is programmed, right? Ant is programmed into this. He doesn't have to think. He
correct,
just does.
correct.
We've been given the capacity to think.
Correct.
Right? We have sort of parked it.
We are behaving like
An ant, and those kind of reflexes don't. I don't know whether I can make such a statement, but they're not honed enough to be able to make the society survive. In fact, society is going downhill because we are relying on basic instincts of sorting out matters. That is Sigmund Freud's famous line to Einstein, saying war is biologically sound. I don't know if you
I haven't heard this.
So there was a lot of correspondence between Einstein and Freud.
Okay.
Because they both saw World War One and went to World War Two. So Einstein wrote to Freud saying, having seen the devastation of World War One, why is the world rushing towards World War Two? And Freud came up with that brilliant line saying, war is biologically sound. And his justification was that we are basically carnivores, warm-blooded, so we need a kill. So that he calls the mortido instinct.
Amazing.
Right? And in addition, we sublimate this instinct because I can't go around killing everybody. I verbally best you.
Yeah. So and sometimes that's more devastating than a physical.
I become a world champion. These are all sublimations of, and that's why you use in sports killer smash, killer instinct, all those kind of things are actually a sublimation of that. And then we get, if you can,
ruthless. He ruthlessly defeated. Finished his opponent, things like that.
And then you get the next level, which is actually the tribal this thing, which of course is from another book, but you can fit it beautifully together. That we are basically human apes. We are basically tribal this thing.
Correct.
So in a tribe, so now you have a mortido instinct. I can't go and kill anybody, but I see somebody else killing that person's relative, and I derive pleasure from that.
And that's what, if you see, I mean, you're absolutely right, because if you're seen in Indian roads, people are dying on the road in an accident, people are filming and then are getting joy out of that.
I'm not going there. I'm
I don't know what that
I'm talking
means.
about, say, for instance, conflict between nations, right? you can't admit that you feel happy if India beats Pakistan in cricket. Why? You're not there. You're not in this thing. You may be, in the Antarctica or something. Your closest friend may be a Pakistani.
Correct.
But nevertheless, if India beats Pakistan, you feel happy because you've identified with a group. So it's a kind of a tribal instinct. So when you add a tribal instinct to a martyrdom instinct and the power of a kill, he comes out with a line that war is a biologically sound thing. Right. So now I've totally lost my stream. I don't know where I started.
That doesn't matter. I think it was. I think this conversation needed to end like that because we needed to understand that the message we are trying to communicate to the global audience is that you take charge of your life. You make sure the learning is what it is. No system is perfect. Every system has its pluses and minus points. As long as you know what you want, take help in seeking what you want, and find your path, you can be a productive person and change the humanity in a positive way rather than impacting it.
May I add?
Sure,
to that?
sure.
I don't argue with what you're saying. What you're saying is right, but in my state of mind, it's been my state of mind enough years to sort of underline it's not going to change. We still need more and more inputs. I still need more and more inputs. I'm not sure we have the answers, right? But we need to define certain things which are which should not be which should be unquestioned. So like good old modern maths or modern geometry talked about point, line, and space as three things which cannot be defined, but everybody knows what it is.
Correct.
And based on that, they derived the entire geometry. No theorems, no riders. Everything derived from three undefinable but universally known things. So if we can break down our knowledge.
What are the three things you said?
Point, line, space.
Point, line, and space.
Because we all know what a point is.
Correct.
You can't define it.
Correct.
Right? You know what a line is, you'll say a series of points. That doesn't mean anything.
Correct,
right?
exactly.
And space is a space,
Correct.
But once you accept that these are known by what you don't know, but you know it, but you can't define it, you can derive the rest of geometry.
Interesting.
So I think that's the principle of first causes.
Each of us have to find out the point, line, and space.
No, I think we should agree.
We should agree
that these are things which cannot be.
I think we
argued.
leave that point, line, and space, and we agree to disagree. But I think somewhere we find a common point to take it
and
forward.
Derive the rest from there.
Derive the rest from there so that it works. It makes sense. Coming back to your journey as a head and neck surgeon. I know you've had some great journeys until a point of change. So you want to talk a little bit of how you started with your medicine. You started with the stuff you didn't know why you got into medicine. Was your head and neck planned? You want to be a surgeon, or how did that happen?
I was actually reveling in the fact that I thought differently. So I thought I was smarter than the others.
Okay.
Again, immaturity. But
you're walking around like one.
No,
were you
I
floating in
walk
the air?
around like a nerd. People say, "Usko bahut pata hai," thick spectacles. But your marks never reflected it because you didn't understand
what's going on.
The system of examinations. Because marks reflect your understanding of the system of examination.
Correct.
I mean, I know people who knew nothing, but they knew what to study and what to answer.
Correct.
Like when somebody would ask me, a question, and I would go back into thinking of, is it really known, may not be known, there are some doubts here. So I hesitate. And hesitation in vivavosis is taken as a sign of ignorance.
Not knowing.
Right?
Correct.
My marks never reflected. So I was actually toying with the idea of doing biophysics, physiology, and I even ventured a little into that thing. And then came scurrying back when I realized that other people's concept of biophysics was whether life is silicon-based or carbon-based and esoteric things like that, which is not what I was looking at. What I was looking at was closer to, biomedical engineering and inventions and all stuff, because that seemed to be a good marriage point between medicine and this. And then I realized that it wasn't there at that time. We're talking about 79, 80s, not in India at least. I thought that surgery would be okay for me because it would at least stabilize my mind. Because one thing about active surgery is something like maths. You have a problem, you solve it.
Correct.
And
There's
you
a
walk
starting
away
and ending point.
Feeling very satisfied how you solved it.
Correct.
I mean, like you have done a small surgery. You stitched it up so nobody knows what you've done inside. But you walk away with a smile inside you because you know I've done a damn good job.
Correct.
Right? So I tossed up between ENT and ophthalmology and all stuff. And I got admission into ENT, and at that time I remember thinking of von Bekesi, who had got a Nobel Prize because he studied the inner ear workings.
Okay.
One of the few doctors
Not
like Cocker got it for thyroid surgery.
Mhm.
Bekesi got it for inner ear
Okay.
research. So one of the few actual practicing doctors,
Oh, who
researchers
did?
who
Okay.
got
Oh, really?
a Nobel Prize. So I said, hey, cool, I could maybe, because all vague concepts,
Hmm.
right? So we're not really rooted in the society
Yeah,
we were
correct.
in. We're rooted in our books, if at all.
Hmm.
So it depends on what books we read. And
True.
those times we didn't really have many books.
True.
Few Anglo-Saxon leftovers, that's
Correct. Correct.
all. So anyway, I joined it, and the place where I joined, which was PGI Chandigarh, was a place where we'd get a lot of cancer cases.
Okay.
So I developed a large repertoire of cancer surgeries, and as a senior resident, you do a lot. Initially, a little untrained ways of going about it because we had no real good mentors. But you make up for it by traveling, picking up, doing some cadaver dissections and all this stuff, and you are, in a sense, a last post. So you tend to do it. So
Correct.
in fact, throughout the world, you'll find that cities which are next to ports tend to be meccas of medicine.
Really?
Yep.
Can you give me some examples? Like,
In India, because now it's changing, but at one time, patient came to me, I'm not sure what to do. I will shunt. Patient will keep on being shunted until he finally reaches Bombay or Madras or Calcutta. Where does he go from here? He goes in Arabian Sea. He can't. So
Correct.
the chap in Bombay tackles it. He has no alternative.
Yeah, alternative.
Think America, New York, Los
California.
Angeles, California.
True.
So Land's End is where people are forced to take decisions.
Interesting.
And when you're forced to take decisions, you pick up experience. I mean, you've done two, I've not done any. You're wiser than me.
Yeah.
Immediately, I have to ask you.
True.
I
True.
can call you to seminars,
True.
and you grow very fast
True,
on that.
true.
So
So you did
PGI
the-
was
yeah,
PGI was one of those
one of those
centers,
centers.
like HOD of some other institute would refer a case, and who was doing it? Me. I was a registrar in the name of my HOD, but he was not there. I was doing it, so it gives you a tremendous boost.
true.
So I did also.
So it really, your learning, surgical learning curve must have been like that.
My ego, I think, climbed a little more than as much as surgical learning, to be perfectly honest. But from there, I came to Tata and did a 1-year fellowship where I learned the difference of mentored surgery.
Okay.
I mean, it's a sea change.
Sea change, yeah?
Sea change. Because I don't know how gory you can allow the discussion, but when you explore the neck, you have a structure called external jugular vein, which is just below the skin, which is actually embedded in the tissues just below the skin,
Correct.
embedded in the platysmal layer. I remember having, tremendous affairs with that thing because that would go very fast in a nick,
Correct.
and I would lose as much blood there as I would lose in the rest of the surgery. When I went to Tata, they have 3 steps, which they put one skin hook, put 2 cuts of scissor, put their finger, and tuck, the vein has gone away.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, and first time I watched it, I felt like crying because I was thinking of
All the things
1
that you
year
have
of
done.
cases which I just stumbled through it,
Imagine.
and here just because there's somebody who taught you exactly what to do, because surgery is a lot. It's actually surgery. So when you think about it, surgery is anatomy. Some simple steps like tying a knot, how to use a knife, which end of
Correct.
the knife, and
Correct.
knife or cautery or whatever instrument you use. So you need to know anatomy, you need to know this thing, and you need to know sequence of
Correct.
events. And it's like taking out a lymph node at the end of it.
True.
Like even a thyroid, you know where the vessels are, you know where to avoid the veins.
True. I agree. It can be bloodless and it can be such a pleasure to do it. I agree. Otherwise, it can be such a mess.
The learning curve comes because nobody knows how to teach it. If
Very
you flip
true.
it and teach it, then you can avoid all this.
Absolutely. So that was, I can see the glint in your eyes when you're talking about that thing. That eureka
actually,
moment.
if you're taught it from beginning, you won't even know what you're not.
Correct. Yes, sometimes you need to do the wrong things to know. Yes,
you come
I
the
agree.
hard way.
I agree. So there's nothing right or wrong about it. All of us, we learn from the mistakes, others' mistakes, our mistakes, and the important thing is to keep getting better.
And then the other sobering thing about surgery is that by the time you mastered something, they changed the technology.
True.
The good old lobotomy surgeons would got very angry if you came in with a needle
Correct.
and
Yeah,
deep
the
brain
stereotypes.
stimulation.
Yeah,
So why are
yeah,
you
yeah, I agree.
changing the rules kind of
I
thing?
agree. I agree.
So,
So tell me a little bit more about Tata Memorial. What else
that
you?
was for me the
Okay.
learning from
That
Tata
was a
Memorial.
sort of a
Very structured, very efficient. And I kept telling people, go to Tata and see how they did it. And that is
now I
also,
understand because a lot of people I have heard people saying that.
and the other thing which I learned there, and that before I give credit to France, is data.
Okay.
Because interestingly, they wanted to computerize. Tata has an advantage. Tata is not on the Ministry of Health. It's under the Atomic Energy Commission.
Oh, okay.
Right, so they're better funded than most of these things. And it's a kind of a, for the Atomic Energy Commission, it is something which it's a showcase kind of
Like a
sort.
crown jewel, something like
Peaceful use of nuclear
Correct,
energy, that kind of
correct.
thing. So they wanted to go digital. I still remember they called Rajiv Gandhi to press the computer, and we were all trying to put our faces in the background, kind of stuff. But anyway, the challenge came for them as to who would be involved in digitizing. So, like, you must have had a challenge in getting somebody who would write the
Correct.
software.
Yes.
So, I think, if I remember rightly, they had Professor Raja Ramana on the board who was judging the companies which were wanting. We're talking 1985.
85. Rajiv Gandhi is 84 to 89, I think.
Yeah, so he looked at them and he said, no, we are from the Atomic Energy Commission. Why are we taking outside experts? And I think he asked the people of the BARC. They had the large mainframe NORSK, NORSK computers,
correct.
right? And they were experts in that. So he said, why don't we use available expertise? So they came in with those computers. And so the initial attempts at digitizing started there. You're talking 1980s. I think it was far ahead of the world. At least the world as I
and
knew.
you have traveled quite a lot for you
No,
to...
but I mean, I traveled later, but at that time I thought nobody thought of it.
Correct.
And what was very interesting is they didn't just go digital. They spent 6 months digitizing the data sheets.
Okay.
So, like for instance, cancer lends itself to digitizing.
Correct.
Because you have T1, T1,
Correct.
N1,
Correct. The
M0,
staging and everything.
staging,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
The history also, you know that if a person has CA lung, he will have these 4 symptoms.
Correct.
And then you leave blanks for any others.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Then they did a masterstroke of digitizing operation notes. And that was great. So, like for instance, incision. They have a drop-down list as to what are the types of incision.
And they're all standard. I mean, all of us have standard stuff.
Now. But at one time, it used to be...
Correct. No,
So-
all of us have standard incisions we had anyway.
No,
Just
now
that-
textbook has defined
Correct,
it.
correct,
So
correct.
we
correct.
don't even have to scratch
Correct,
ahead
correct,
now.
Correct.
But at that time, notes were written like, craniotomy done,
Correct. Correct.
patient
correct,
better.
Correct.
Because there was no standard way of defining it. Or flip, the way the Westerners did was they used to dictate.
Dictate.
And therefore their dictation was something like a podcast. They keep on talking.
Correct. Correct.
And they just keep on talking about this and that and this thing. So the first time I saw the first step to digitization was digitization of handwritten notes. Because then you're forced to think as to what you're doing in surgery.
Correct.
And they sent it on to the doctors asking them to change it, etc., etc.
Oh, they asked that.
Yeah. So
refund,
they had 6-month period. They first issued that, made people fill up, and then they got feedback as to what are the other
very
things they
nice.
can
I
add.
think that's-
Beautifully done.
fantastic.
Marvelously done. Unheard of.
Oh.
And definitely, even now, nobody knows.
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, I know.
And then,
It's good you're saying all that on stage because to say that it happened in India so many decades ago. And we are
of
not
course, I was
done-
very junior at that time. I was a kind of a fellow school officer or something, on the periphery of that thing. But I was amazed. I thought that was sharp thinking. And then to digitize a digitized sheet is easy.
Right.
Child's play. And then entry was easy
Correct.
because you knew
Correct.
what
do.
to enter.
True.
Right? So, and now, if you get papers after papers coming out of TMH,
It's because of that.
it's because of that.
The investment done there continues to pay, and then we
Yeah,
are
because they've
thinking that
improved
that's a smarter institute. Yeah, they're smarter not from the surgical aspect alone, but they also know how to capture it so that they can. I think that's a great message you are giving to say that Doing is one thing, standardizing the processes and then documenting the standardization and digitizing them. So that
And the fact that, like you picked out just now, that standardizing the procedure, everybody in India is obsessed with numbers.
Hmm.
I've done 500, I've done
Correct,
600.
correct.
To my mind, you need to know what is correctly to be done. Numbers see, surgery is a young man's game.
Correct.
Right.
True.
So I've seen many seniors obsessing about doing the surgeries
Correct.
or putting their name in front of
Correct,
surgeries. To my mind, it's pointless.
I agree.
It's pointless because if you're taught the team well,
and if you codify it and you're able to actually go it down to a manual, you're actually contributing more to have 1,000 surgeons doing one surgery. Because you doing 1,000 surgeries and you will die one day, and the skill will die with you, which is, and each of them can do 1,000 if you actually give them the opportunity to do that.
So that now is, to my mind, the single difference between the West and East.
What is that the distance allowing others to learn your skill and not be afraid of
see,
that?
they're not allowing for the benefit of society. They're allowing it for instance, I'll give you an example. If you were to go abroad and talk about your numbers of cases, it'd be very impressive. But if you were to go abroad and talk about the Indian experience, it would be 10 times more busy. If you had everybody in India working. But in India, it's a bit of a catch can wrestling. It's a kind of free for all, like the traffic will show you. Everybody is trying to
the
get
survival of everybody wants. I think it's
it is silly. Because it is silly. For instance, if you went in a line, you would get ahead faster. But if you all try to cram into one point, you won't get ahead point. But we don't understand that even at our level, our level means not you and me, but in general, higher level, we are still on a competition mode.
Correct. No, I think it's a part. Even if you look at the movies, they say that you have to push somebody down for you to go up. They don't understand that you can collaborate and do the things better than doing it individually. And for a long time, that's why we were good as individual sports people rather than team sport at the end of the day.
Actually, now the scene is different. People can go around freely, and the universalization of examinations and taking it away from a few people reduces the control, which is a move to the good because you're free. It can be misused, but it can be used properly also in the sense that if I don't do something, they can go to you and learn something else.
True.
Good for them. At that time, it was, distinct no. If I found out that he had gone to meet Sharan, then I'd fail him in the exam. That kind of nonsense used to go on. So that maturity has come in a big way, so people are able to go. So visiting good people, learning, now that's getting into pontifical HOD head. This one is a good thing. Second is like niche specialization. I think if I can fault myself, I didn't care to niche. Because I was, like if I went into something new, I would learn how it's done and be very satisfied. Okay, this is how it's done. This can be done. I teach somebody and move back and go into something else.
You didn't follow through on that and make
I didn't follow through and try to make a name for myself saying
like
that.
how I have now chosen stereotactic
so
function.
You've actually niched in a sense.
Correct.
Right? And you're building up so that what happens, nobody can take that away from you. I am a type who's, once I feel I've cracked it, I'm happy. For me to do 100 of the same thing, I know they would all be different, but it would be less interesting than going into some other area.
That's why you made a statement. I'm a dissipated alpha. You made a statement. Is that a way you want to relate to that?
No, maybe that's the way it happens. But that you're just expressing your internal personality.
Correct. Yes.
If you're given a choice, would you rather do this or would you rather do that? So, but anyway, that's me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about what can the students apply. So, students should understand what kind of a person he is. He should find out what is a good niche area. And so, for instance, in all subject studies, we are asked to do something on recent advances.
Correct.
It is usually considered a pain.
Correct.
To study recent advances. And what they'll end up doing is what is not all that recent. It's only what is currently available or was available in the last year or something. But actually, we're missing the point. That's a very smart thing. Because what is the future for today is going to be the average for the future generation.
Correct.
Like
the science fiction movies we used to watch when we were kids.
Routine.
But now it's become standard of care.
So then, though we are trying to thrust them on the students should now be bothered about what is cutting edge next step.
But they are going into that future.
Yeah. So the niche. So it's not necessarily that you should choose my niche. You should choose your niche, and that could be smartly based on what are the potentials.
Actually, I did that, Ravi. Now that you're saying that, I actually did that. when I asked myself this question, I'll share my thing. So normally, what happens in you have this broad specialization like an MS, MD. Then you have the super specialization, which is the neurosurgery, cardiac surgery, and all of those things. And then in neurosurgery, we have something called subspecialization, which is the fellowships that we do. So normal trend was when at the time I was training in the 1990s is as you're finishing your neurosurgery training, is super specialty, you go in for a fellowship. And most of those fellowships are abroad because India didn't have fellowships at that time. So before you settle down, have a family, get a job and things like that, go get some fellowship under your belt, which will make you one level higher. And so everybody's competing. You're going to here, you're going to there, US. Some places are higher, some places are lower, and things like that. But what would happen is I started looking around what's going on. And all these seniors who went and came back, one thing I saw them, most of them in common, 80-90% of them is they did nothing about that fellowship except putting it on their visiting card. And they would come and crib, look at back in the US is like this, India is stupid, this is happening. I said, that's a mature economy. This is not, this is just a fledgling economy. We are still surviving and trying to get our feet on the ground. I said, I don't want to become like that. I don't want to become a upset Atma like this because then it's not serving the purpose. I'm still doing a borehole and things like that. So I said, I would not go for a fellowship. Let me become a hardcore general neurosurgeon. Dirty my hands on the ground. Look what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what I like, what I don't like. Then I'll start exploring which fellowship I would want to do. So 5-6 years, I just did the dirty work on the ground. And I think that's the best thing for me because I had a mentor. I went through the process. I fine-tuned my skills and on the basic things like head injuries, strokes, and all of those things. And I did quite well.
So what I did was actually with the same set of cards, I did it differently. And that's how I got into bioinnovations.
That's the flip that you made.
That's the flip that I made.
Got
Say,
it.
for instance, you say, to quote you, that US we had this. I asked myself, why is it that in India you don't have this?
Fantastic. Correct.
Right? Which is what led me to start. So 2004, I tried to set up, and then I tried to be aware of the institutional dynamics and set up a bioinnovations program between the medical college and the engineering college.
And was that the time that RV college thing happened?
Yeah, that was
Can
how
you
the
tell that story? I love that story.
So that is a bit of a random story in the sense I read a newspaper report about a foot-controlled wheelchair.
Foot-controlled wheelchair.
Coming out of RV Engineering College when I was passing RV college.
Okay.
So I
your car?
In a car.
Huh.
So on a hunch, I told the driver, just go in, and I met the head of the institution and told him that there's a flaw in this, that fellow's on a wheelchair because he has no foot control.
Correct.
Right? So we got a little panicky.
But I
said, no, nothing. It's great. All you have to do is put the control on the hand.
Correct.
Because his hand is functional.
Correct.
So he was smart enough to ask me, so what's the point? So I said, your point is you're not taking real-time problems.
Correct. Right? Taking the real-time problem from the ground.
Yeah. You're actually just, taking things from the net or book and all, what somebody has already done or something like that. That's how we started it. And then I realized...
So that was sort of like the seeding for you to understand problems from the ground have to be addressed.
No, so that we have to set up a method of doing it. See, in theory we know.
It didn't exist.
It didn't. Nothing exists.
Correct.
No money, no nothing. So anyway, I got the MOU signed. I think I have the only copy of the MOU still with me. Nobody else has a copy because this is all individual driven in a big mess of inertia.
Correct.
But I'll give you another instant. We used to do bronchoscopies. As ENT surgeons, we used to go...
a tube into the windpipe and see what's going on into the lungs.
We used to take out foreign bodies.
Okay.
And
they more in children or...
in children. And in children, one of the most tricky ones was ball bearings, metallic foreign bodies, because they slip.
You can't hold it.
Yeah. And time is a factor. Because more time you spend meddling in the lung, more then the child may die. It's quite a do-or-die situation.
It's a life-threatening issue. Don't think it's a simple thing.
Yeah. So one of the ideas which all of us would have meddled with, of course, so now the current method is to use a Dormia basket, what the urologists use.
Correct.
It's a pretty unwieldy thing because you have to get it, you have to open it, and
Put it back.
when you're putting it in, you're blind because you don't have a scope in
Correct.
that time. You're guessing what's going on at that time because at that time we didn't even have the opticals. So there are a lot of issues. So one of the ideas which came to me is I was just seeing, the good old car antenna, you used to pull it out.
Correct.
So I thought if you had a car antenna and you magnetized it, you flick it on, catch the metallic thing, pull it out.
Amazing. Such a simple idea.
Simple idea. But to do it was a nightmare.
Why?
I don't know. You tell me. So I went to the engineering college.
Mm.
It was a master's student's thesis
Mm.
topic, and finally they brought it to the thing, all naked, because they brought beta prototypes,
Mm.
so naked wires and this and
Mm.
that. The nurse was located and said, "Doctor, don't tell me you're going to put this inside a patient's
Sterilization. Huh?
this thing." So
Oh, inside. Okay. Huh.
nothing has come of it
Correct.
because we didn't have the maturity, because they've never been exposed to these kind of problems.
Real-time problems in a in a real atmosphere rather than a simulated
So
atmosphere.
when I moved on from St. John's and I got the glorified position of a dean in a academic institution, so that's another story of my take on academics. But when I was there, I similarly signed an MOU. I thought now as the dean with some powers behind me, I'd be able to do it. But I failed miserably when I had interactions with bigger institutes. The same thing. And then I realized that
What is the same thing means they're not getting the thing on the ground? Or where is the challenge? Where are
the
you finding the
challenge is
challenge right now?
nobody makes a system.
But then couldn't you have made the system?
Can't.
But
As the dean, if I can't,
huh?
and I couldn't even do it in the institution where I was.
But why?
Because nobody has seen it before, and nobody likes to do something which is totally out of the box.
Oh, so
Unless
even
it's
so, it
defined.
doesn't matter if you're sitting in a seat of power. It's still you
It's
have
very difficult. That's why they say prime ministers don't have power. They only have the power to, get consensus and all that kind of stuff. The absolute power is a myth. It doesn't exist. Because I can't make you. I can shout at you and make you do one thing, but I
Correct.
can't make you do
do it
anything
every day
which you
with the
don't want to
passion.
do.
Yes.
Either you want. I have to.
True.
So the trick is therefore to make you want to do it,
Got it.
which is a nightmare if you're dealing with numbers. Or else you have a system where you have no other option. You have to clock in at 9. You may not want to do it, but the system is that you clock in at 9.
So what made you continue to do that though you had so much of frustration, so much of negative stuff? Nothing
Partly
seemed to be
because I
moving.
think my time in Punjab, I say, has made me partly a Sardar, who says, karna hai,
To karna hai.
karna hai ya marna hai kind of logic.
So what was that?
No.
What
So
happened in Punjab that
no,
made
no,
you?
maybe something in the water, but basically the idea is a little bit of pig-headedness.
Okay.
Because if you're not pig-headed, you never know that make racket. Many
True.
times it doesn't work.
True.
You're left ruining the time you got into this thing, and still may happen anytime. But it's what makes people persist with a lot of lives. Persist with medicine, persist with,
But then you had to give up some part of your head and neck to devote some time on
that
this.
was a
How-
bit
how
easier
wa-
because I had health issues. So
Oh, what
I had
happened?
to slow. I had some cardiac issues, so
Okay.
I had to slow down my major surgeries anyway.
Correct.
But no, that was not really
That is not
the
real.
only thing. It was also the fact that I was the head of department, and I came into the head of department back. I had gone abroad. I had some money in my kitty. I had built a house and had this thing. So I came back to academia, which is rare. Most people go into practice. I had my options.
Correct.
I thought, look, we went abroad. We tried to make money with the idea of making money. Because you felt frustrated because you didn't have money when you were in academics. But
Correct.
it's not that you didn't like academics. So what can I do in academics? And
So now the money was not the issue.
taking money out of the equation. And it was an eye-opener. I really realized that the powers which are given to a head of department, also, if you are, or the head of department may choose to give many people powers, can enable us to be game changers.
Oh, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, for instance, ENT is an easy specialty to do this because it's not one specialty. It is about 6 different subspecialties. Same would be for neuro.
Correct,
Could have
correct.
varied. Spine could be one, and
Correct.
this could be one.
Correct.
So the question is, we choose our, I'm going to compact a lot of things and maybe we'll have to break it up later.
No problem.
We choose head of departmentships here by accidents, by serendipity. That is, you're the junior most person, but you're the only neurosurgeon. So you're head of
Yeah,
department.
that's what is happening. And a lot of people put that next to their.
You're the senior most person, so you're the head of department. Then somebody
It's
says
more time based or just location, whatever based. Some based.
serendipity. And
Correct, serendipity.
suddenly somebody comes with a new rule saying in only institute you're having rotating headship. So who's the next guy? Rotate him. Without any planning.
And no logic.
No logic. Now, the better system would be that let us assume you want to rotate everything every 5 years. At the end of 5 years, you call for interviews of every eligible person and say, look, give us a game plan.
Next 5 years.
Next 5 years. And it should gel with what the institution wants and this thing.
Correct.
You make your ask, saying that I can't do it unless I have a rehabilitationist.
Correct.
I want this much.
Correct.
You should invest this much. I'll be able to give you ROI. So it will fulfill the industrial
Correct. Needs
logics
our-
also,
Huh.
right? Plus, it will fulfill the service needs.
Correct.
It can fulfill your passion needs, your
Correct.
training needs,
Correct.
whatever.
Correct.
Everything can
Correct.
be fulfilled.
Correct.
You want to start a fellowship in that.
Correct.
So they give you and assess you by your own
Correct. What you
failure
set out to
standards.
do. Correct. That makes sense.
And then if they find that you failed miserably to do what you had said to do, they say, okay, have an interview again.
Correct.
And then choose an expert. That would be the way you can get ahead. Because if the head is not getting ahead, nobody's moving.
Yeah. And it's frustrating for other guys because they're seeing that it's going
So
on in circles.
when I was sitting in the head of the department chair, this realization came to me
Okay.
that nobody is stopping you.
Got it.
We are sitting and cribbing. We don't have this, like you said, we don't have this, we don't have this. We're not doing anything about it.
Correct. And you didn't have, there's no fire under your bum to do anything because anyway you're sitting in that head of.
But I had now chosen to come here.
Correct.
So now I had to justify to myself why I did it.
At least for you.
So I need to, say, no, but at least I did this, whatever.
Correct.
So that's a devious way. But basically, so the way I looked at it is very straight. What can you do in the head of department chair? So you have to, crack the whip, get unpopular. That is 100%.
Yeah. You can't keep everybody happy. That's
There's a inertia built into the system. You had to define your method. So I used to come in in the morning and start by visiting the purchase department to follow up on my things, the maintenance department to see that the cottery machine had been repaired, because nobody do it because you don't have a system which will do it. So I had to do it manually. So a lot of sagas in the way, and then
You were starting from cleaning the place to a top. You were like a one-man show.
many of my so-called big institutes taught me that also. Because
Amazing.
everybody sort of sits in.
No,
the
but there's so many people in the institute. It's not that
the
it's
more
a-
people, less work is done.
Agreed. More people, less work. Correct.
Because each
More
guy assumes that the
inefficiencies.
other fellow is doing it.
Correct. Everybody
and
thinks,
falls
yeah,
bit
it's not my
short.
work. It's not my work.
So, so the other things which I did, apart from the routine work, which I did a sizable amount of routine work also, I realized that there are so many subspecialties, and all the specialties required, number one, equipment. So focused every year getting equipment. There's always some funds. Now, even the way the administration functions is 1 month before the budget, they send you a letter saying, we want budget for the next year.
Correct,
Give us
correct.
3, this gives. This is
Correct.
ridiculous. Nobody will work that way.
Correct.
And that's the second flaw in the Indian system, that nobody sees himself as assisting anybody. They want everybody to come to, cut out to their ego. So I was comparing it with a friend of mine in States. He said, if I saw something interesting, I would tell the purchase department, I saw that interesting. They would come, they would prepare everything, and I would sign off, and they'd have it within a week.
Oh,
So he had whatever he seen new or read in a journal comes within a week is for him to play. He just has to make the case and builds his reputation on how
He's
well
gonna
he's
use
able
it.
to. And if they're looking at ROI, he just has to prove that they have ROIs. That's the main thing. So we need a lot of changes. But in the absence of that, apart from that, there's nothing really stopping you. So if you understand what that guy needs, you can always
so
give
as
him
an HOD, how did you put that? You were saying that 6 portion.
each specialty I equipped.
Okay.
Like for what I go, I purchased an ENG, and where we didn't have money, I got it through research grants,
Oh, very good.
right? I started interdisciplinary interactions like ENT path, ENT radiology, ENT
So
microbiology.
you force people to come
Force
together
people to
and
come
get.
together because you get ideations only
Correct.
in an
Correct.
interface.
Correct.
right?
Correct.
I started got the ENT and the chest physician to work together for allergies. Try to get the dermatologist also involved. So you can have an allergy
Correct,
clinic
correct,
and
correct,
that
correct.
kind and that is once real spin-off. You get a lot of papers because
Correct,
people are
correct.
interested
True,
in
true,
hearing
true,
the other
true.
aspect of it. And with the equipment, automatically, for instance, we got a stroboscope. We got an endoscope and a stroboscope, and suddenly we found pathologies which we had not even read of before. And you find phenomenal numbers. And in India, numbers are very easy to get back.
Correct. Correct.
So when you talk to a foreigner and I say, I've seen 14 such cases last month, he nearly died because he's seen 14 over 15 years.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
That's the kind of thing. And therefore you can publish, you can do. So you can do a lot of things if you get yourself organized. The
So
other
getting
thing,
organized is.
the trick is to make the system. If you make the system, you don't need anything else.
I mean, you say it's a trick, but that seems to be the place where everybody is,
No, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that.
Correct. Once you show it to people, then they'll see,
It's the same thing with surgery.
true.
You will find there's nothing really that there's
True,
no
I agree
rocket
with
science
you.
in surgery.
I agree. Once you
You
standardize
just got
it,
to know. It's like this external jugular vein.
yeah.
You just got to know how to bypass it.
Correct.
Once you know how to bypass it, I was not
True.
better as a surgeon.
True.
It's just that I knew something which was, which I didn't know before.
Yes. What the brain does not know, the eyes can't see. That's a
Absolutely.
statement that we say. Yeah, it may be very interesting.
So once I figured that out, I got into slightly new areas. For instance, I got into stem cell research.
Okay.
Right? So you would say, Ravi Nayar, a half-baked
Where-
surgeon.
Where is stem cell? Yeah, exactly. I was just going to ask you the
But
same
came
question.
about so easily that I can almost laugh about it. I'm sitting having coffee with a head of medicine who is discussing with a researcher from NCBS who was trying to help this medicine head to set up a stem cell facility in the institute to help bone marrow transplants. Because bone marrow transplants need stem cells.
Correct. That's one of the defined indications.
Correct. So because I knew both of them, we were sitting and having coffee. So I just casually asked him, I said, is it the same stem cells which we can use in our field? So he said, stem is stem. It can go anywhere.
Correct.
So I started reading about it. I got one of my faculty to sit and do some writing up and we applied for an ICMR grant for stem cells in a year.
In a year. You in a year came back again here.
No, it can be a year.
Yeah. I agree.
You can use stem cells. So the trick is, if I may expand a little, stem is undifferentiated. Stem goes into mesenchyme. Mesenchyme goes to neuronal.
Correct.
Neuronal goes to hair cells.
Correct.
That's the inner ear cells. Right? So I came up with this project that maybe if you could do that, you can test for autotoxicity in vitro. You don't have to test for autotoxicity in vivo. You can actually, like a antibiotic sensitivity test, you could do this. That was the notion. And I got a grant. So I set up India's only stem cell research facility in inner ear.
Really?
You bring stem cells on a plate, I won't be able to identify it. I was the only fellow and I solved it. And this became a talking point in a lot of international conferences because it is widely done elsewhere. But in India, there's only one lab, me. And what do I know about stem cells? Nothing. Have I got anything out of it? Now you can flip it that way. I found out it's a nightmare. Because it is not so easy that you just create stem cells. You also have to implant it in a bed of epithelium which has been taken out of living from
donor
rat.
Live donor.
I mean, you're working in rats or mice. Actually.
Okay.
You have to put it in that and encourage it to grow and also. And that demands its own machines, technicalities and skill sets. I couldn't get anybody because that is not a glamorous field. Cardiac and neuro are still the glamour even in stem cells. So I couldn't get anybody. So it petered out. We got a couple of publications and because I left by that time, I tried to keep it up alive. I even would go on weekends, something like Banting and Best and try to do some work and then I took it to, and this is when I was the so-called dean of an institute, I was running around NCBS trying to dissect animals and all this stuff. Crazy. Because it's just, you're sort of working in a wild area, not knowing what the hell you're doing. But for what it's worth, I can brag about. I have bragging rights. I did only India. Until I find, this is hardly 6 months old, I bump into somebody here in the National Center of Biological Sciences who is a scientist from UK, Indian, Indo-Brit, from UK, traveled abroad to States, postdoc in Japan, who has been running a lab for the last 10 years in NCBS. He's brought out 15 PhDs only, I'm loose with numbers here, only working on hair cells in the inner ear.
Whoa. How? What's the time gap? 10 years?
He's been doing all this while I've been struggling here.
And you didn't know each other existed?
I didn't know. So which brings me to the other thing.
And in the era of internet and 4G and 5G, same city, Silicon Valley,
so
all of those things.
I said, look, I struggled for 3 years. How much time do you take to take a stem to hair? He looked at me and said, 3 weeks.
Like you are a Tata Memorial experience.
Few days I went home and wept. I said, this is crazy.
Very sad.
This is crazy. So this brings you to the next point. That number one, you open your mind to the intersection, there's a lot of opportunities.
Correct.
And then you realize that there are people around with experts.
Correct.
And
You just have to seek. That's what our scriptures say, no? Ask and thou shalt get, seek and thou shalt find. The
Yeah, so
key is
right-
to go out.
correct, but I'm not looking at scriptures now.
Hmm.
I'm just banging my head against the stone wall saying, what's going on? So I'm trying in my own way to address that in my current
Correct.
avatar, where I'm working on bioinnovations, trying to get medical and engineers to work together. And the list of issues I'm facing there are also incredible. Incredible. So,
Getting stuck with more on the problem than able to put it. We know the solutions, but somehow not able to put it
see,
together.
we know the problems, we know the solutions, we know the experts, we know where the money comes. We don't know the system. To crack what we have, we are all looking for the Westerner to provide us a system. Or to
A
follow,
ready-made.
or to follow whatever Western paradigms have been defined. Saying what works for Harvard has to work here, which, as you pointed out, is not the truth.
Correct.
Actually, what works here works here.
Yes, yes.
So that is part of the fact that of the lack of confidence,
Which brings it to the statement I make here. It's called Gobi Manchurianizing the business. See, what is Gobi Manchurian? See, if you remember, if you realize, the moment we say Chinese food in India, the first dish that comes to everybody's mind is Gobi Manchurian. But the original Chinese do not have Gobi Manchurian. It's purely an Indian Desi version of that. So I'm saying that unless you Indianize it or make it culturally appropriate, affordable, whatever it is, it will only stay in a book somewhere, in a paper somewhere. It will not get operational on the ground. It can't be mass road.
but I'm going to take you on this.
Okay.
I'm going to take you on 2 points out here. Okay. You run one risk
Okay.
of verbally trivializing it,
Okay.
and that's a big risk.
Okay.
Right?
In what sense?
In since that, like, if you go to an office, a guy wearing a suit and a guy wearing a sweatshirt. In India, you tend to gravitate to the guy wearing the suit.
Correct.
Right now, this guy may be smarter.
Correct.
Most likely is smart. But because he has trivialized his appearance, that's one. I'll give you a further extent in that. The second point here. For instance, we keep talking about healthcare tourism. It is so much so I think they have a ministry of healthcare tourism.
Correct.
Right? Is the most pejorative term ever made. Like there's so many Indians who go to New York or Harley Street. Are they going for tourism? No, they're going for treatment.
Correct.
All these fellows who are coming to India, are they coming for tourism? No, they're coming for treatment. They get cost-effective treatment.
Correct.
Tourism is a word which was created in the West because
To belittle this.
To belittle this.
And we
And we have
fell
been
for
very
it.
happily adopting it and putting it up, stamping it on our head saying, I'm Minister of Medical Tourism.
I never realized that.
And it's
how
spreading.
the play of
It is
words.
established.
Correct. You can't change it now.
I mean,
you can.
have to change.
Yeah, you have
There's
to
no
change.
other way.
Correct.
If you want respect, you have to behave in a manner which gains
Yeah,
respect.
exactly. I mean, as a doctor, I can't say you come to me for tourism. You come to me for treatment. I mean, it makes fundamental sense. in
Yeah,
that.
nobody stops you from going to Humpy. Nobody stops you in New York
Correct.
from
That's
going to
a
Central
choice,
Park.
yes.
That's your choice.
Yeah, but you're not.
But you're not coming to go to
yes,
Central
yes,
Park. You're not
yes.
going to go to Humpy and getting an appendix removed on the way,
Exactly. You're
which
not
is
getting-
the implication.
Very, very interestingly put. See, guys, viewers, if you're liking this podcast, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You click the like button and definitely share and press the bell icon because you never know how much of such information that you will get that it can help you to settle down somewhere, make an impactful contribution to the society and to the world, and obviously you will get benefited in the process. I agree with you completely, Ravi. I think it's what you said. Thanks for pushing it back and getting that clarity on that. I think that's very valuable what you have said. So what regrets do you have in life? You have said a lot of things, but would you do some things differently if you are getting a chance to do it again? Let me reword that.
Yeah, okay, let me put it like this. There's an old Hindi song
Okay.
which goes like this. Sab kuch sikha humne, na sikhi hoshiari. You heard that? Sach hai duniya walo, hum hai anadi.
I've
You heard
heard
the
this.
song?
Yes, I've heard this song.
It's popped up in my mind many times.
Okay.
That if I have regrets in life, and I have many, it is that I have not stood up for myself.
What do you mean? I mean,
Like
can you tell
many
our global
times,
viewers what that
okay,
means?
let's say you have a patient, okay? You're a relatively junior person and you're convinced this is the way to do it. But you say, okay, I'm standing in the front of so many senior people. And who am I? So you back out. And what you thought actually transpired. Patient dies.
Hmm.
You regret it. Now, you can always back out saying it's not my responsibility. I'm just a student. I'm not
Correct.
an observer. I was not
Hmm.
called to
Hmm.
ask. It's not my call to make.
Correct.
So it boils down to the fact that you didn't have the guts. You didn't have the courage of your convictions to stand up. And that is ultimately the only regret we are entitled to in life.
So
Because
you have that. You feel that.
everybody has it.
I agree.
Some people admit it, some people don't. I admit it.
I agree.
You know, it could be something as mundane that I didn't propose to that girl.
Hmm.
It could be even that.
Yes.
Or career choice.
Correct.
Or, I should have jumped into this even though I didn't have money. I should have the guts to do it. So it all boils down to this. So if you ask that, so if I look at all my regrets, if I basketed together, the single basket is I didn't have the courage of my conviction. Because I was unsure of my future. Sometimes when I did,
Was it the fear of the unknown that you would say? Or what is that fear? You have the conviction is one say, but there must have been a fear to not to take that a leap of faith, as what you would call.
because the question is almost every step in life is a leap of faith.
Of course, and it's going into the unknown because that's what Columbus did. That's what somebody else did.
That's what I did when I drove.
Yes, you lost.
So
That was not a leap of faith, either.
leap of faith for me, long times
You're driven.
ventured out.
Got it.
But anyway, the point here is, so when you look back, these would be, this is the basket umbrella under which.
Got it.
Partly, like if you're a square peg in a round hole, you either have to round your peg or square the hole,
Okay, the whole.
right? Or move to another place where there is a square hole. I did none of them.
You did none of
I did not round myself. I failed to square the hole, and I didn't
Move to
relocate.
that side.
So that would be roughly my mistake, which I put down to courage. If I had courage of my conviction, I said, okay, 6 months I'll try it, others I'll scoot. That takes that kind
Thanks for that, because I think I'm like, let's say, halfway through what you've been. I'm also experimenting like this, and that's a valuable lesson for me. And I'm quite sure for many of our viewers who are at different stages to say, it's the courage of the conviction that you have to take the leap of faith, and then face it. Is that leap going to be you're going to reach the destination all the time? Not necessarily, and you should be able to pick yourself up and dust yourself. You may have a bloody nose, but still willing to say that you screwed up and then go back next to to look for the next square peg.
easier to say in a sense, partly because you're either tuned like that or you're financially buffered like that. Those kind of things play a role. Or society. See, India is not a society which encourages this. We are a reductionist society, basically.
Correct.
We try to pull other people back.
True.
So given those things, so it's like that. I can talk about it. I can pretend it's a big success. I can pretend. I can be honest and say deep down. That is why you find people who are at the top of their game. You find they commit suicide and this and that because they view themselves differently as from what other people do.
And I've always wondered, they look so successful. Why did they do that?
Yeah, because that's the way you're looking at them. They're looking at the missed opportunities. They're looking at what they could have done, what they should have done, and those kind of things. So that your own perspective takes up a lot of your own mental space, and other people's this thing.
We had a very interesting chat on a lot of things.
I just opened the doors. Okay?
Yes, of course. Do you have any last messages to give people that, with your journey that you have done, especially the current space that the world is, the current space that India is right now, the technology is there, the money is there, like you said. People are a little more open than what probably you were when you were there. Situations are different. Would you tell them, to look at it differently?
Yeah. The more I think about it, it is entirely to do with how you set up systems.
How to set up systems.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
The solution to everything is systems.
Systems. In fact, the human body is a system of systems. And it works whether you're awake, you're asleep, it's working like that.
So the brains was creating it or allowing it to self-actualize in the self-organizing theories to become as good. And you notice, because in self-organization it is given a perpetual method of adapting to change.
Correct. And you should be also receptive, adaptive to change.
So, okay, then I'm not going esoteric. I'm saying we need to set up systems.
Correct.
One. Two, the people who have the authority or have the money, who are actually choosing which of the arms to send ahead, they need to get out of the banking analogy. If you see a bank has money and asks you, do you have a need? Come to me with your need, make your case, give your collaterals, I give you the money, I monitor your spending.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Now that has an inherent flaw that it takes a lot of time, number one. Number two, you need to have the expertise to make an application, which is
Correct.
often different. Say, you may know how to build a house, you may be a wonderful mason, you may not know enough English
Yes.
to
Yes.
apply for money.
Yes.
So often the people who know how to get the money take the money.
Correct.
They don't know how to build a house.
Correct. Correct.
Right? So that is the flaw with the banking analogy. So A, you need to figure out a system. B, you need to figure out how to take something like a microfinancing thing, but you need to take not just in quantums, but you need to be able to identify the people who are going to do the work and help them.
Which is the right horse to back?
Which,
is that the right
which
way?
And how?
Which and how?
You take that. See, if he doesn't have the skill set of knowing how to make a Excel sheet, go and make it for him.
Correct. Or teach him how to make
No,
it.
make it for him. Of what you're giving him, take 10% of that for yourself. So let the authorities that be figure out, identify the person, go to him and say, look, because the asks are now beyond your number of cases. You want to involve 15 other people.
Correct.
You can't individually run around.
Correct. Correct.
The government can. So
Correct.
they go to all the 15, bring them all together.
Correct.
And pay them.
Correct. Makes sense.
Pay them for you. So, so you need to
leverage on that.
You need to leverage. So the people in authority need to so one is you set up a system. One is the people within that system whom you put up for authority should be able to reach out and say that, look, we want movement on this front.
Correct.
We don't want you to develop some 3D model when what we want is a 2D model.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And then the next point, which I would think is a message, is that progress occurs only when specialities interact.
Progress occurs only when specialties interact.
Say, for instance, even a lot of basic physics progress, I can give you some example, but that I won't go into that, is when they applied mathematics to it. Like matrix mathematics was applied to quantum mechanics. And people, like somebody is explaining the problem to a graduate student who had done a maths background. He said, hey, this is a matrix.
Correct.
And they got Nobel Prizes for that. Seriously. So there is so much of cross specialization.
And cross learning, which adaptation, whatever.
Because the need comes only when you talk.
Need comes.
The
Perfect.
need
I
never
think that's
comes
a
like you
brilliant
spend
third
all your time sitting with 10 neurosurgeons. You'll only get
Same, we are
rehashing.
singing the same song. You're not saying we're going, it's not, nothing new is happening. I completely agree with you.
And
Brilliant.
then the last message, if there again there's messages, the point is the skill sets needed to get ahead in politics administration are also different. Like nobody who's heading a hospital necessarily knows neurosurgery. So he would then ask people for advice. So whom would he ask for advice? So he would ask you, why? Because you are a great neurosurgeon. Over the last 20 years, you have a superb track record. But you too should realize that you're not now in the cutting edge.
Correct.
The cutting edge is the next generation. So
Correct.
again, I bring it on to a war analogy. The advisor to the defense minister is a medaled general of the last war, of World War II. He doesn't know the reality of the ground.
Now
of
it's
World War
cyber
III.
war for all you know.
Cyber war,
Yes.
and he is clueless.
Yes, he's clueless.
Right? But he is advising the ministry.
Amazing. You're right.
So
Right.
put these three together and you can have the beginnings of change.
Fantastic. I think that's, I can see that very, very clearly. We'll make sure we codify these 4 messages and go out at the end of this. I think that's a brilliant, ending to what you have said. It was, going here and there because that's how much of chaos that's there in this world. And finally, you are able to bring it down to a place you showed the negative things to say that this is the struggle. And inside of the struggle is like, the how the butter comes out at the end of the day. You persist with that, but follow these 4 steps And sooner than later, you try it on a small problem and then you can sort of master that. I think great, Ravi. I think it was a great chat. And I think these 4 messages, for me personally, I'm going to make sure I go back and check whether is there something missing in one of these 4 steps which is stopping me to get the result that I want. And if I do get a result, which I think I will, already running in my mind, I'll get back to you and give you a feedback how it worked for me.
And
Thank
I
you.
will convince my wife that I'm not just gassing.
Perfect. So we have a deal
It's
right
a win-win.
now. Perfect. We have a
You
deal.
better succeed for my sake.
Yeah. Now there's no performance anxiety will come in now to make sure what is going on. I agree. But I promise you I will do that. And whatever, additional benefits you get, I will take a royalty from that for sure from you. Thank you very much. It was a great chatting with you as usual. And in spite of knowing you for so many years, I still heard so many new things from you. So it's never a boring, moment chatting with you at all. I want you to get that, that, you do, you may feel that you're doing this or that, but I'm telling you, I was in rapt attention because each of the points that you said, I was looking at making notes, putting into my space and seeing how, because it is not, specific to the, situation. This can be used anywhere else. And I think that's very valuable. People may want to watch it more than once to know, because when there's too much of information, they may miss some of the points. And that's what the value is.
Deeply
Thank you very
honored.
much again.
And that
Please.
too, as they say, coming from a person I respect.
Thank you. I get that. And I really mean it. I really mean that.
So do I.
And yes, I really mean that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Pleasure for being with us. And as a customary end to this whole process, we give a gift of our book to you. So an autographed copy of the book. We have written a book called Rebooting the Brain. We also have a channel called Rebooting the Brain. We have got a documentary called Rebooting the Brain. Make sure you watch all of that. Each of it gives different angles to who we are, what we do to create awareness and educating the public about this amazing organ called the brain. But obviously, like you said, just sticking to the brain and not putting all these other pieces of the puzzle.
May I add one more?
Yes.
It's a known or little known fact that the schools which have started because of that Italian lady who runs these schools for gifted children.
Special needs, huh?
No, the
Montessori.
Montessori schools. So Madam Montessori.
Correct.
She was actually a doctor who had trained in techniques for children with special needs.
Correct. I heard about that.
And she applied that to normals, and that became the Montessori system. So when you are talking rebooting the brain, you are actually pointing out to people who have special needs.
Correct.
Due to trauma or whatever.
Yes.
It might be worthwhile exploring whether the same paradigm could be applied to normals.
Amazing.
Because when you wake up in the morning,
correct,
you reboot.
Correct.
Anyway.
Correct.
It's only that we never thought about how we are rebooting.
To make more efficient, or even to save time for yourself or reduce the stress level. It's an amazing thought.
The same rules.
Thank you for that. So if this clicks, this one, there'll be a royalty that will come.
No. So you could think like you have Montessori schools for normal, because
Interesting.
Montessori schools are not for children in special schools.
No longer.
You can have coaching sessions on rebooting your
Yes,
brain to
yes.
become more effective.
Yes, I agree. I mean, it is needed because what is normal, what is abnormal in the brain, nobody knows. So unless you really break down with a stroke or something, but the rest of it is still a software malfunction that people are.
This is one brilliant line which I heard of late. We were talking chess. So Vishwanathan Anand was asked about, people, the insanity because of Bobby Fischer and all those people in chess, because it's a lonely profession. So I really loved the way he said it. It's a TV interview. He says, "What is insanity? Sanity itself is the method, is the skill which you have in hiding insanity."
True. Very true. It's well said. That guy is another big role model for sure. Vishwanathan. And interestingly, some people used to say at a point of time, some profiles I look like him. I said, at that time he was on the top of his game and things like that.
No, but I think the point he made was very good. That everything is appearances to an extent. So that's what I said. The pitons, the point, line, space kind of things.
Correct.
Once you have an understanding of that, the rest you can take without
so.
really.
I think the two big things, again, to summarize for our global viewers, is that point, line, and space. We don't know how it comes, what it is, but everything is built with theorems.
And we all know what it is.
Yes, we all know what it is. And secondly, the 4 points you gave at the end, I think systems, understanding, picking the people, joining them together, then making the processes and making it take, I think that if anything else, but if you can take these two and build it around you.
And rebooting normals.
And rebooting novels. 3. So we got a third one. I think it's game on for us. Thank you very much, Ravi.
Thanks a lot,
and
Chief.
Let me give you the book. So this is Rebooting the Brain. It's not for normals. It's for people who've had a problem. But I'd love to hear your feedback on this.
Sure.
Let us know what's
Sure.
happening. So, guys, this is the end of another podcast. I think it was fabulous the way Dr. Ravi Nayar shared through his experiences, through his sorting things out in his own life, showing you what a roller coaster ride the life can be, whether professionally, personally, especially at intersections of two different fields coming together, how people think differently. Yet, if we're able to make a method in this madness and able to get some nuances going on, I think the magic can happen. And keep watching our podcast. We're going to have more such people coming in, creating this, the waves, creating this, ruffles that's happening. Because unless you challenge the status quo, nothing new can happen. So please remember that. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Rebooting the Brain. Hit the like button, share it, and for sure, press the bell icon, because you'll get more and more from this from us. That's a promise from our team. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
When I was in Goa.
Goa,
Yeah.
the beach resort.
The beach resort along with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I could find that a lot of noise started coming, and we could see that around 3 or 4 family members of the same family getting drowned.
Yes, in the sea?
Yes. Yeah, in the sea. Out of which 2 were literally gasping and they were about to die.
Uh-huh.
So since I was a trained BLS as well as ACLS trainer, which is day in and day out my job, so then I know that what needs to be done. So started giving a chest compression. It's difficult to give a breathing also, but at least made him to lie down. And I know that pulse was feeble, but he was gasping. So till the ambulance could come, so I continued giving him chest compression. And yes, the ambulance did arrive. I could go into the ambulance also giving chest compression and made him to reach the hospital. There he got intubated.
What is CPR?
Yeah, so it is called as a cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So
Cardiopulmonary
resuscitation.
Cardiopulmonary, heart, lung. Resuscitation means getting them to function back or work back if it has stopped working. So, sounds very simple.
The second thing is, yes, they need to call for the help. So that is always important, because the alone person cannot help. So that means they need to call help. Whoever is their surrounding people.
Can
Yes.
you tell our audience, what does this basic life support system course? What is the course and how long does it take and what all is taught in that course?
Yeah. So as I said, basic life support course can be done by both medical as well as the non-medical
That means
person.
any human being,
Yes.
starting with a child,
Yes,
can
yes.
understand.
And
How is the youngest person who can undergo BLS training?
maybe if they know that somebody has become unresponsive, maybe what I can say beyond 7th standard or the 8th
Even 10 years
standard.
old, because children are very intelligent now.
Yeah.
So if suppose the father collapses, grandfather collapses, they're alone at home, it's worth the child doing something and saving the father's life.
Yeah. So one is who can do. So it can anyone who it can happen to their own friends, community, and their family also. Hence, it should be incorporated into the high school or the college that at least once they should undergo the basic life support course.
Once a year. I would recommend once a year.
Yeah, no, it is.
Ideally.
Yeah, it
Or
is
once in 2 years. Huh?
Yeah, once in 2 years, what has
years.
been recommended ideally. Yes,
Yeah.
once in 2 years is good enough. Or I would say at least once in their lifetime, at least they should do. And obviously, if they are a medical person, once in 2 years. And the duration, yes, generally we say the best course should include at least 5 to 6 hours. But we can train them as minimum as within 2 hours or 2.5 hours. On the mannequin, what you suggested, that at least they have done once the chest compression, once giving the breathing,
But they
once
should
knowing
get that
the
feel
AED.
of how you keep it and do that. That's very critical.
Exactly.
Yeah, that
So
concept.
hence, I would suggest that whether you are a medical, non-medical person, whether you think that it is going to help you or not going to help you, somebody else will do. It's always better that you spend at least 2 or 4 hours in learning the basic life support course, what I would suggest.
Next is you're called the ambulance. The ambulance comes. In our country, ambulance comes with a driver. There's nobody else in the ambulance. It's like a taxi service. It only has ambulance. So guys, that is of no use for us because it will not have oxygen, it will not have anything else. You have to have an ambulance with a paramedic inside.
Yeah.
Is that what you recommend? Is that what's happening right now? Can you elaborate that? What kind of ambulance?
So generally, whenever we transport sicker patients, we call it as basic life support ambulance. Like we call it a BLS ambulance, which...
So every ambulance, you have to now find out whether it's an ambulance, it's a BLS ambulance. Like we had a stroke ready hospital.
Yeah.
Now we are saying it's the ambulance, a BLS ambulance.
And the second one is the ACLS ambulance. ACLS ambulance is, yes, we need a monitor, we need a defibrillator, we need a person who takes care of these things. That's what you are trying to say. Yeah.
We'll at least go to the BLS ambulance first.
Yeah.
Tell us about the BLS ambulance. Is that the BLS and ACLS training is not mandatory in medical schools, at least when you were there? Is it mandatory right now? Is everybody going through it? Is somebody implementing it?
So I don't think it is still a mandatory now.
So what are all these people paying crores of rupees, lakhs of rupees to build colleges?
But in critical care course, yes, it is a mandatory.
What's the point?
Before they take the exams, it is a mandatory that he should show the certificate. Otherwise he will not get into. I think the software industry, this has come off late, think how many hours one should be working.
That's what.
And when I started calculating along with my daughter, and daughter said, Papa, you are working more than what the best person has told in the world. Because 240 hours per month, exactly what you mentioned, working continuously for 36 hours is more than what is been told you can. This is the maximum what you can do. We are working beyond that also. But absolutely, that fascinates us only because we enjoy what we do. So,
and we have no choice, Basuraj.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, for example, let us say you are not on call, I am not on call technically. But when we get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, we have to take the call. And sometimes there are times that I have called him at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, Basuraj, what do you think? And we are discussing the case 2 o'clock in the morning.